Well, we fixed up the basement last year. We got the floor poured in it in 2014, and then we spent last year wiring it, putting sheetrock up, lights in it, stuff like that, and getting it made shelves and workbenches, and then got the airframe in there for the airplane. I've been working on it. I built the doors, and then this year we built the cover for the entrance there, so the rain and the stuff falling off the roof don't fall right in the door. And one of the things that does at nice covered space is it gives us a work area outside. So when we do things like sawing wood with a table saw or hand saw or sanding and things like that, we can set up a bench out here on sawhorses and work outside, keep all the dust and stuff down in the basement itself. Now, the problem with that is that we got to run an extension cord from one of the outlets in the basement outside to work. So in the summertime, pests, mosquitoes, bugs, mice, things like that can get in and out. And of course, in the wintertime, then cold air gets in there, the warm air gets out, something like that. So right now I have a tank heater in that tank trying to thaw it out. The water tank's completely froze up. It's been so cold that it froze solid. We got the extension cord coming out through the door. So I've decided to go ahead and put an outdoor outlet here. I tried to figure out where to put it. I don't want it too close to this end here, because there's going to be a corner board on there when we put the boards up. We've got a hardy board to put up there, lap siding to put up, which will look a lot better with a hardy board on there. So I can't put it too close to the corner, but I don't want it too close to the door, because again there's going to be a trim piece go up around that door, and then the door would open up into it and hit it and either damage the door, dent it, or the electrical box, outlet box. Now I was going to put some conduit down there and put a board up, run some conduit down and run the cable in the conduit, but I decided I'd go ahead and just cut that foam out like I did on the inside and run the cable down inside the foam and embed it in the foam, and then use some spray foam in there to fill that gap up when I'm done. I can put a board down here to put the outlet in. Normally on the outlets you'd have them 16 inches above the floor. Now there's no set standard for that. That's just kind of the universal accepted standard. Those echo blocks are 12 inches, so that would put the outlet about halfway up in that second block. But since this is outside, and we're probably going to pour a pad out here eventually, and it'll be up quite a bit higher than what my footing is there. So I'm going to go ahead and put that about 20 inches above. Well, 24 inches would be right there where that second echo block and the third one join. So that would be a good spot to do it, right there in that. I put the bottom of it right there where that joint is. The first thing I did was I went up there and tried to decide how to get through that sill plate on there. I got a real long, I don't know what they call that, a bell wiring bit or whatever, but it's about a 1/4 inch drill bit that's about 18 inches long, and I picked a spot there and then just run it through that sill at an angle and to the inside, and then I could see where it came out, and I took an auger bit and drilled a hole through the sill plate down, and it come out there. So that's where the wire is going to come down. I'll go ahead and clean out chase down to the length of that to run the wire in. I'm going to put in a double outlet, and there'll be one duplex outlet, and then there'll be a single outlet beside it, and that will have a 20 amp 220 volt circuit in it, so we can plug a welder. So I've got a outdoor cover that fits that. Well, actually the ones I got have one outlet on one side and a duplex one on the other. And up there in that bay up there is the one where the wire is going to come through. I've already got holes drilled through my floor joist all the way across. I've got a box over here that I can tap into, so I can just run the wire over that. It's already got wire nuts in there, and that's a junction there for the wire. Channel carved out there of the foam for that the wire will run down through. I did a pretty lousy job of making a straight line on that. I'd chew anybody else out for doing that bad of a job. But those lines that are embossed in the foam from the factory are pretty much weathered off of there and gone. So I came down, I was doing okay, and then I kind of wandered over to the wrong side. But it all comes down, there's where the cutout for the box is there. Here's the outlet box. I'm just doing a trial fit on it. I've got a duplex, 20 amp duplex outlet to go in it, and I was going to use this singleplex 20 amp outlet to wire up for a 220 outlet, just a 20 amp 220 outlet. But I'm kind of changing my mind on that. I think I'm going to go ahead and put in this 30 amp outlet here and wire that up with 30 amp, so I can always make a jumper to go from 30 amp down to 20 amp. But if I want to run a 30 amp circuit off of that, it's kind of hard to jump back up. The hole in that box will fit that 20 amp outlet just fine, but it won't quite fit that 30 amp, that bigger outlet, at least not the way it is. Now there's a little ridge in there. If I take the Dremel tool and the sanding tool and just sand that out to where that ridge is sanded out even with that boss, then that'll make that big enough to work. It looks like I have to use a GFCI outlet in this box anyway, even though it's coming from daisy chain from one that already has a GFCI outlet in it, which would protect that circuit. This outlet cover, to attach it, it has to have tabs here on the outlet, and a standard 20 amp outlet doesn't have that tab in there to screw this panel onto, the cover, outlet cover onto. So I looked through my box and I don't have any other duplex outlets that have that tab on it. Minutes with a Dremel tool and a drum sander attachment on it, and sanded down that flange in there, and so that thing, that 30 amp outlet fits just perfect in there. Well, you got the channel cut out for the wiring, and I got the wires run. I got the 10-3 wire run through the hole and then tacked up to the floor joist all the way over, and I don't have it in the panel yet, but I've got it set up over there to the panel. 12-2 wire is up through the holes in the floor joists is on this side over to where it can splice it in with the rest of the outlets on this wall. Got my outlet set up there. I took a piece of yellow cedar, 8x10, and then cut a hole in the middle of it to mount this. And this is an old work style box, double gang box. So it's got tabs here that can go on the outside and screw in, and this will just go ahead and fit right in there just like that. The nice thing about that is I can go ahead and put the wires down through there, strip the wires, and hook them up to the outlets before I put this panel up. And then I can put the panel up on the wall here, and then we'll put 2 screws, and the screws go into these plastic tabs here in the echo blocks. So that's the next step on putting the wiring in here. And I just dropped my outlets down into the snow. Outlets are installed. There's the duplex GFCI, and there's the 220, 30 amp 220. I'm just as glad to have had this board loose on here to put this outside plate on here. That was kind of a son of a gun getting those screws started in there. So we'll put this on there like that, get a couple of screws and screw this plate right into those tabs right there. And then I'll secure these wires down in that channel, and we'll foam that channel in, and we'll cover this up, this wall up with hardy plank siding. I got the box mounted up to the wall there, and I got the wires in. Now in the house, when I run them in there, I had lots of cut off pieces of electrical wire that I used, and I just pushed one end in this foam on one side and one on the other to hold those in. I didn't have any extra out here, so I just got a thin piece of welding rod and cut off about 6 inches or so, 8 inches, and shoved one in one way and one in the other, and that'll hold those wires in there. till we get them foamed in. Junction box is right up there for the west wall outlets. I've got that wire pigtailed out to that right now. I have to cut some of it off, but I can run that into that junction box and just splice it into that west wall system there. I pulled the circuit breaker, threw it off, and just to make sure I had the right one, make sure that circuit was dead, I plugged that light bulb into the first circuit, the first outlet on that circuit. When that bulb went off, then I knew that circuit was dead. I got those wires spliced in there. Leave the sticking out of the box a little bit until I do a test on it and make sure the circuit's all working. And one of the things I learned in the Air Force is even though I turned that circuit breaker off, even though you know you got a dead wire, you want to work on that. You always work with one hand in your pocket, and that way you're less liable to get a fatal electrical shock. And it was one of the only times we were allowed to have a hand in our pocket when I was in uniform. Activate that circuit. Okay, that's the one. And it shows it's hot. At least this one in here is. This is the 110 volt side. We'll plug this light in there. Uh-oh, it don't work. I got a light on there. Why don't it work? Oh, I bet that goddamn ground fault interrupter is bad. I got power coming to it because when I press the reset button, I get a red light right there in the test button, but it's just not working. So now we'll see what to go from there. Okay, I tried to find another GFCI circuit breaker or duplex outlet, but I couldn't find one. Got a regular 20 amp duplex outlet, wired it in there, and it works just fine. Well, there's no reason why I can't use just a 20 amp duplex out here because I've got it's downstream of another GFCI anyway. The problem is that there's no tabs on that for the screws to hold this weatherproof cover on. I went to town and was going to get another GFCI out there in town, but I got to looking through what they had there, and I come up with one 20 amp outlet, duplex outlet that has these little ears on it for mounting that box cover on, and it was a 20 amp tamper resistant outlet. Has little plastic tabs in there, supposed to keep kids from sticking something in there. Okay, that should do it for the outside electrical outlets. There's a 120 amp duplex and one 30 amp 220 volt outlet. The 220 volt's not wired into the circuit panel yet, but it's all run up to it. All we need to do is stick it in the panel and hook it up to a breaker. I went ahead and foamed that channel. I could just saw that stuff off flush with the foam with the walls when I get ready to put the siding up. So I got the cavities. There were two cavities there, the one big cavity that the wire went through and the one little pilot hole that I put in so I could find where to drill the hole from the inside. So that's all sealed up. Wire's all in there nice, and so we shouldn't have any cold getting into the cement through that. And that chase that I drilled through that has been all backfilled with foam, so no more air leak through it. So we got the light on and working and the outside outlet on and working.